Chapman, John Chapman, who was on Battleship Row, the USS West Virginia. The West Virginia took 9 torpedoes and 2 aerial bombs, causing massive fire within the battleship. And 106 of John's shipmates perished. To his right, another member of Battleship Row, B.J. Smith, who was aboard the battleship, the USS California. The California took 3 torpedoes and 2 aerial bombs. The torpedoes split open the sides of the California and caused massive flooding and some fire. 96 of BJ's shipmates perished. 2 over is John Tate aboard the light cruiser St. Louis. The St. Louis was the first ship out of the harbor, ready to meet oncoming Japanese forces if necessary. Luckily, that wasn't the case. And representing all of the survivors is also a member who was on Ford Island. And I would like to introduce him now, survivor Earl Chuck Kohler.
Oh, how fortunate we are to have survived that event. I'm going to share a little bit of my experience with you so you'll have some idea of what went on there, but the rest of these survivors experienced very much the same thing. I was in an upper level office, Aerial Patrol Squadron BP-23's hangar, attempting to type a letter to my dear sweet mother. I heard the sound of approaching aircraft in the background. Suddenly and almost simultaneously, there was a tremendous roar, and bomb fragments, explosion debris, and window glass came crashing into the back of my head, ears, neck, and shoulders. That's that first bomb that Wayne mentioned a while ago. If any of you have been involved in similar situations, you'll maybe remember that it kind of upset your train of thoughts a little bit. It took me a few minutes to get my train of thoughts back together, and when I did, I'm still thinking that it's one of our friendly air group pilots doing a little hot dogging, and he hadn't pulled out in time and crashed. I'm going to go down and see if I can be of some help. I pushed myself back from that debris-covered old manual typewriter desk, got up, shook off as much of that debris as I could, and started for the door. For some reason, I thought, oh boy, I could be in trouble up here using a typewriter. I'm not authorized to use a typewriter. So I reached back and grabbed that unfinished letter, ripped it out of the case of that typewriter, crumbled it in my hand, and threw it in the wastebasket as I went out the door. You can only imagine how many times I have wished that I would have kept that letter. When I got on the lower level, went out through a narrow opening left at the unclosed end of the big steel rolling hangar door, the sound of another aircraft. I looked up, and here comes this airplane in a steep power dive, and I'm seeing what's looking like blinking or flashing lights on the front, and I'm hearing strange popping and buzzing sounds all about me, but I don't recognize either of them for what they were. Later I was told that what I thought was blinking and flashing lights was actually machine gun muzzle flashes, and those popping, buzzing, and whizzing sounds that I was hearing were those machine gun bullets striking and ricocheting off the steel hangar door right behind me and off the concrete apron on which I was standing. But since I didn't recognize them for what they were, I thought, hey, they're no danger to me. So my interest is drawn to a big old bomb hanging there on the bottom of the fuselage between the fixed landing gear on that diving old Val dive bomber. Suddenly that bomb released, it wobbled as it began to fall, and that airplane began to pull out of its dive. By the time it had got out of its dive, I don't think it was more than 100, 150 feet over my head. It's then that I first saw and recognized that big, round, red insignia. That, and the fact that he has just dropped a bomb, has convinced me that these are not the friendly fellows I thought they might be. I turned around, hurried back inside the hangar, hoping I could find someone with the key to the ammo shack. All of our guns and ammunition was locked up, and I wanted to get a gun and get at these guys. But as I come in the front door of that hangar, the other few that I went on duty with that morning were going out the back door. Somebody, I suppose the duty officer passed me and said, "Hey, you, follow me." I went after them. I thought, oh boy, we're going to go get some guns and do something about this, you know. But instead of going to the ammo shack to get guns and ammunition, they ran out there by the taxiway, jumped into an on-field construction ditch. I jumped in after them, you know. I hit the bottom of that ditch, got myself stabilized, looked up. I'm looking at right there at a guy in the white uniform, the dress uniform. The work uniform was old bell-bottom blue dungaree trousers and a blue chambray work shirt. He was in his white uniform as though he was going into Honolulu, going to church or something. Never did find out why he was in his white uniform, but I'm so thankful that he was. He was there. On the left sleeve of that uniform was a petty officer's waiting badge. And I recognized that wing, round cannonball, the insignia of an aviation ordnanceman. I said, "You the duty ordnanceman? Yeah, you got a key for the ammo shack. Let's go get some guns and ammo and shoot these blankety blanks, you know." So I had much more hit the bottom of that ditch, and that ordnanceman and I were on our way up out of the ditch. Somebody, again I suppose the duty officer, shouted, "Get back in the ditch! Get back in the ditch!" I don't want to be in that ditch. We're military men. We should be putting up a defense. We shouldn't be here in this ditch. Besides, I know this is the beginning of that war that they've been talking about and we've been getting prepared for. And I'm from a proud family, and I damn well know that if I'm going to lose my life in this or any other battle of this war, I would want my family and my country to know that I died fighting, not hiding. We continued out of that ditch, started to run for the ammo shack. Then I heard the most unexpected military command directed at myself and that ordnanceman I thought I would ever hear in the military, especially under those conditions. Somebody, again I suppose the duty officer, shouted, "Get back in the ditch or I'll put you on report for disobeying a direct order." Talk about being between a rock and a hard spot. You know, these guys in these airplanes are dropping bombs and machine gunning, trying to kill as many of us as they could. And our own duty officer there in the ditch is threatening us with military discipline for wanting to defend ourselves. I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. With total and complete disregard for the threat of military discipline, with total and complete disregard for the fact that aerial bombs and machine gun bullets were raining down the air to where we were heading, we continued to run. We made it to the ammo shack. The ordnanceman unlocked the door, let himself in. I'm right behind him. "What do you want? Give me a 50 caliber machine gun." I'm a recent farm boy. The big guy I'm used to fire on a regular basis is a shoulder-fired 22 caliber rifle. This is not a shoulder-fired gun. It's a fixed mount machine gun. Hell, it looked to me like a cannon without wheels, you know. And I took it as best I could, most likely cradled it in my arm. I wasn't very big at that time. Turned, and, you know, and out started for the door. By now, I guess a few other brave souls figured they had known to be in that ditch either. They'd followed us to the ammo shack. The guy coming in the door was taller than I, huskier built. I just offloaded that machine gun to him. I said, "Here, take it to the BUY park in front of 23 seconds. I'll get the ammo." Boy, he looked a bit surprised, but he took it, turned out the door he went. I turned around there, and again, I'm so thankful for that ordnanceman, because without his cooperation, none of this that I was involved in could have happened. I was just a seaman, a boot seaman. He was a rated petty officer. He could have said, "Oh, I'm not getting out of this ditch for you or anybody, buddy. You just shove off," you know. Anyway, when I turned around, he was just setting 2 canisters of 50 caliber ammo up on the counter. I grabbed those 2 canisters of ammo, turned around, and out the door I went. Now, I'm not a runner or a sprinter, but I guarantee you I beat the guy with the gun to the airplane. He had a heavier load than I did. We were coming from the port side of that airplane, but the ladder to get into it was hanging from the starboard gun blister. I ran around the backside, set those canisters down, started up the ladder. I don't think I got more than a couple of runs when it dawned on me, hey, if I get up inside this airplane, am I going to be strong enough to reach down and pull that big old gun up inside? I don't think so. So I jumped down off the ladder, just the guy with gun got there. I said, "You get up inside, I'll hand it to you." Boy, he chopped up that ladder, jumped inside, turned around, reached down. I got the gun to him somehow, most likely muzzle first, which is the lightest end, which is also a safety no-no, but I don't think either one of us were thinking about safety right at that time. I shouted, "Put it in the port blister, that's the side they're coming from." He turned around, disappeared in the fuselage of that airplane. I grabbed the canister of that ammo in my right hand, guided myself up the ladder with the ladder, set it inside, back down, got the second one back up, set it inside, jumped inside, picked those 2 canisters up, stepped across to the port gun blister, just as he was swinging that mounted gun out and locking it in firing position. I set the canisters down, flipped the lid open, come up with the end of the belt, ready to load, thinking he'd have the breech open. But he was just standing there staring skyward. I looked up, and here comes another one of those guys. You know, big old bomb hanging there at the bottom, blinking and flashing light. Now I'm only hearing popping sounds, which I was later told were some of those bullets passing through the fuselage of that airplane we were in. Man, oh man, I'll tell you, Anyway, I couldn't wait, and decided I got to get his train of thoughts back together. I just reached over, slid the lock forward, threw the breech open, fed the end of the belt in the loading mechanism, slammed the breech shut, grabbed the charging pin, pulled it back, let it go, bam, we get around the chamber. Shoot, I shouted, and he pulled the trigger. Now, I guess he was one of those guys that thought with a machine gun, you don't have to aim, you just point in the general direction and fire away. Because I stood there and watched those tracer bullets fly off harmlessly through empty space, far away from where that airplane was. I think that's when my country boy hunter instinct kicked into gear. I used to shoot jackrabbits on the run, Chinese ringneck peasants on the fly, not with a shotgun, with a .22 caliber rifle. I knew that you had to put that bullet where the target would be when the two of them came together. Anyway, I shouted, let me get the next one. He let that gun down, stepped aside, boy, I brought it back up, and just as I did, here comes another one of those guys in a power dive. I got a bead and a lead. Now, if any of you guys are hunters, you know what I'm talking about. A bead and a lead. And I continued to lead, I squeezed that trigger, I continued leading and firing all the way. He came down, completed his dive, pulled out in level flight and passed just overhead. I watched those tracer bullets fly through the air. It looked like every one of them went right into that round opening in front of that old radial engine valve dive bomber, and then stitched a stitch right down the bottom of the fuselage. Now, those of you who have been in the service know and remember that following each one of those tracer bullets, there are 4 regular bullets, another tracer, 4 more regular bullets. So I know I did some damage to that aircraft. But you're not going to be watching him to see what happened to him, because he's going away. He's no longer a threat. You better be looking for the next one that's coming at you. I bring that gun back down. I'm looking for another one in a dive, but I don't see anybody. But there's one out over the channel, maybe 2 city blocks away, well within the range of a .50 caliber machine gun. Now, he's not in a power dive, but a steep banking and descending left turn is where he's getting ready to make another run on it. Because he's in that banking turn, I can see the cockpit about 6 or 8 feet behind the front of that airplane. I figure at that distance and at that speed, if I use the front of that airplane as my aiming point, I'm going to get some rounds into the chamber, into the cockpit, fuselage, maybe even into the cockpit. And believe you me, if you can get a couple .50 caliber slugs bouncing around inside that cockpit with that pilot, you're going to give him something else to think about besides coming back and machine gunning you a second time. I maintain that lead, squeeze the trigger, brrr. I don't dare get off more than about 6 or 8 rounds, but I saw 2 of those tracer bullets disappear into the fuselage of the airplane just forward of the cockpit. And when it did, that airplane did an abrupt rolling right turn and was gone from my field of fire. No more aircraft came back to bomb or strafe our end of the island that morning. I got to fire short blast at other aircraft on their way to or from other targets as they passed through my limited field of fire. About the same time that the second wave of those attacking aircraft came in, the USS Nevada came down the channel, making a run for open water. I got a chance to fire on some of those guys. They got on that Nevada like a swarm of bees. They were hoping they could sink it there in the channel. I think it was about 50 years later, I was listening to a news broadcast from Pearl Harbor. They had located some of those Japanese pilots who had participated in that raid. By the way, they did a great job. And they had survived the war. They were physically able to travel. They brought them back to Pearl for that event. They were interviewing them, and they asked this one pilot, what part did you play in that raid? Now listen carefully to this. He said, I was the lead pilot of a group of 9 aircraft. Our assigned targets were the airplanes and the hangars on Ford Island. That's where I was. He said, when I went in for my first run, machine gun, dropped my bomb, I didn't see a soul. It was like the whole island was asleep. But he said, we were surprised how fast they reacted, because by the time I had came around and was lining up for my second run, there was so much fire coming up that I turned and went elsewhere. How I would love to talk to him. There's the guy that dropped the very first bomb to fall at Pearl Harbor that morning. That's the guy that dropped the bomb that got to me physically, spilled of my blood, surely some of the first, if not the very, very first blood to fall at Pearl Harbor that morning. But I think in spite of that, I'm the guy, or at least one of the guys, that got to him with that on-target .50 caliber machine gun fire and changed his mind about coming back and machine gunning us a second time. Thank you. Thank you.